Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. And honestly, we're starting with some really heavy reality today. If you're an environmental campaigner, an activist, or just someone who fights for the survival of this planet's ecosystems, this is a briefing you absolutely cannot afford to look away from. We are looking at the world's most endangered marine mammal. We're talking about a creature that has survived millions of years. It predates human civilization, it lived through ice ages, and it survived monumental shifts in the Earth's climate. Yet today, it is quietly being erased. So we're going to break down the science, the staggering policy failures, and most importantly, the actionable pressure points you need to fight for the ghost of the Gulf.
Less than 10. Just let that sink in for a second. We aren't talking about a population of thousands, or hundreds, or even dozens. Literally, fewer than 10 individual, breathing, family-oriented creatures left on the entire planet. These are incredibly complex mammals that live in family groups, and right now, you could count the entire surviving species on your two hands.
And you know what makes this so incredibly heartbreaking? It's the contrast. Up on the surface, the Gulf of California is this pristine, millions of years old turquoise paradise. It is a breathtaking, peaceful habitat. But beneath those shimmering waves, there's this dark, invisible tragedy going on. The water is literally laced with these deadly, tangled mesh walls called gillnets. It is a silent slaughterhouse just hiding in plain sight, turning this beautiful sanctuary into a graveyard.
Section 1. The Ghost of the Gulf. Let's get to know the amazing animal we're actually fighting for here.
Meet the vaquita, or Phocoena sinus. In Spanish, that actually translates to little cow, which is kind of adorable. It's the absolute smallest cetacean on Earth, barely reaching 5 feet long. And get this, it was only discovered by science back in 1958. They have these dark rings circling their eyes and dark patches framing their lips that give them this permanent, deeply melancholy expression. And they are so incredibly shy. They'll break the surface for maybe 1 or 2 seconds to breathe, and then poof, they vanish. Silent, elusive. They really are the ghosts of the Gulf. Tragically though, they're quickly becoming literal ghosts.
Section 2. A staggering population collapse. How exactly did we get to this point?
Look at the sheer speed of this collapse. It's terrifying. In 1997, there were about 600 vaquita left. Bad, sure, but not hopeless. Then, absolute freefall. Down to 245 in 2008, down to 30 by 2016, 19 in 2018, and today, fewer than 10. That is a 98% drop in under 30 years. For all of us campaigners out there, this timeline makes one thing absolutely undeniable. This isn't disease, it's not climate change. This is a 100% human-caused crisis driven by massive, catastrophic policy and enforcement failures.
Which brings us to Section 3, the aquatic cocaine trade, the real root of the problem.
If you're organizing a campaign around this, you have to understand this interconnected tragedy. Here's the wild part. The vaquita isn't even the target. The vaquita shares its exclusive habitat with the totoaba fish, and both are critically endangered. But the vaquita has literally zero black market value. It's strictly an accidental victim, collateral damage. Poachers are actually out there hunting the totoaba fish to harvest its swim bladder for traditional Chinese medicine. The poor vaquita just blunders into these invisible gill nets meant for the totoaba, gets completely tangled, can't surface to breathe, and drowns. And here is the massive financial incentive driving all of this illegal fishing. $46,000. That is what just 1 single kilogram of totoaba swim bladder can go for on the Chinese black market. Think about that. 1 bladder from 1 fish can literally be worth more than a brand new car. When you're fighting this issue, you are going up against a massive economic tidal wave of illegal money.
Because of that insane price tag, investigators literally call it aquatic cocaine. And honestly, as activists, this is exactly the analogy we need to be using. It's the perfect soundbite. It instantly communicates the danger, the illegality, and the ruthless cartel-level criminal networks that are driving the smuggling trade and driving the vaquita to extinction in the process.
Section 4. Fatal flaws in policy. Let's talk about the failed rescues.
So after past interventions like the 1975 totoaba ban totally failed, things got pretty desperate. People thought, well, why not just move them to a sanctuary? In 2017, the Vaquita CPR team tried exactly that. First, they attempted to capture the remaining vaquita, but these are highly elusive, super wild animals, and they immediately went into profound shock. It was a complete tragedy. The first female they caught had to be released right away, and a second young female died within hours of capture. Ultimately, it led to the agonizing decision to just cancel the entire program. They are simply too fragile. They literally die of heartbreak and stress. So what does this mean for our policy demands? It means in situ habitat protection. Protecting them right where they currently live is the absolute only viable policy left. We have to clear out those nets.
Moving on to Section 5, Biology of Survival, because there's actually some really good news here. Now, you might be wondering, if there's less than 10 of them, and they're basically ghosts, how do we even know they're still out there? It's all thanks to C-Pod acoustic monitoring. See, vaquitas use echolocation clicks to navigate their habitat and avoid predators. Tragically, their sonar just passes right through that impossibly thin mesh of the gill nuts. But scientists have deployed these floating C-Pod devices that actually listen for those specific clicks. And guess what? They are still picking them up. They're getting undeniable proof of life. The vaquitas are still out there, calling out in the dark.
And here is the data that should give every single one of us immense hope. Unlike a lot of endangered species, their actual habitat isn't destroyed. The Gulf is clean, and their food sources are fully intact. Second, even though their genetic diversity is really low, science shows they are still biologically viable for a full recovery. Third, females are out there successfully giving birth to a calf every 2 years. In fact, researchers just recently spotted young calves swimming around. The vaquita has immense resilience. Nature isn't the enemy here. Time isn't even the enemy yet. The enemy is strictly human greed and the physical presence of those nets. If we remove the nets, their biology will totally do the rest.
Section 6, the activist call to action. Let's talk about our mobilization strategy.
Okay, here are your exact policy pressure points. First up, we have to demand continuous, round-the-clock Mexican Navy patrols right in the upper Gulf to actually enforce the law. Second, relentless pressure for the absolute permanent removal of every single illegal gill net in the area. Zero tolerance. Third, we have to go after the demand side. We need aggressive, consumer-focused campaigns explicitly targeting the global buyers of totoaba bladders, specifically in those Chinese black markets. We've got to cut off that aquatic cocaine money right at its source. And lastly, share the vaquita story globally. So many people have never even heard of them. We have to break the silence, because silence is exactly what those cartels rely on.
I want to leave you all with this final thought. The vaquita is still swimming, still breathing, and still fighting to exist in the warm waters of the Gulf against all odds. We have the science, we know the cause, and we absolutely know the solution. The question isn't whether we can save the ghost of the Gulf. The question is whether we will. Take this explainer, share it with your networks, and let's get out there and get to work.